Get us back down to that rooftop!
No, I'm gonna get my butt chewed out for this one. We're going down.
Dead Rising is a game that has eluded me for the most part, mainly because I grew up as a PlayStation gamer and I'm still primarily a PlayStation gamer, but I remember way back in the day wanting an Xbox really, really badly so I could play just a small handful of games, mainly Left 4 Dead and of course Dead Rising. If you couldn't tell based on where my priorities were, and let's be honest, still are, I love games where I'm able to kill zombies, and seeing gameplay for Dead Rising when I was a kid just blew my mind. It looked like an absolute spectacle. It looked unlike any other zombie game that I've ever experienced at the time. Instead of existing in a horror setting where you're managing resources and making every shot count, you're instead picking up park benches and mannequins and living your best life without a care in the world. Instead of dealing with 1 or 2 zombies at a time, there were practically hundreds on screen at any given moment. And I did eventually get an Xbox and this copy of Dead Rising that you see right here, and I did try to play it back in the day, but I never got any farther than an hour or 2 at most. But with the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster out now, I knew before playing that, I had to finally play the original all the way through. And that's what I did last week, and that's what I'm going to talk about in this video, is me experiencing this game in its entirety for the first time in 2024. But full transparency, even though I'm holding up this Xbox 360 copy, I actually played the PS4 remaster, the one that came out a few years ago, mainly because it was easier to capture footage, but overall, it's pretty much the same experience. And if you end up liking this video, you should check out my full review for the Deluxe Remaster, by the way. I reviewed that game a few days ago when it dropped, and overall, I really, really liked it. And if there's an aspect about Dead Rising I don't talk about in this video, chances are I talk about it in that video, but keep in mind, even though I released that video first, I still played this game, the original, a few days before that. And just consider subscribing if you haven't already. I talk about video games all the time on this channel, day one reviews, other video game discussions, a lot like this one. And at some point in the relatively near future, I want to play the other Dead Rising games as well, all the way through for the first time, and make videos for that too. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's talk about Dead Rising.
Yeah! You go boom now! Here's a present for you!
So when I loaded up Dead Rising, I was expecting to just have a bloody good time. I was expecting to slaughter some zombies, laugh at stupid shit, and marvel at all the insane psychopaths and their often weirdly perverted gimmicks, and those thoughts did come to fruition, but what I wasn't expecting was to simultaneously have one of the most brutal and challenging gaming experiences of my whole entire life. Yeah, it didn't take long for me to realize the reason why I never got far in this game as a kid, and that's because of the time management. I don't know why, but when I started this game, I completely forgot that time management was a thing, or more so, that it was arguably the biggest gameplay feature in Dead Rising overall, and it sets the tone and the foundation for everything else. I got a serious reality check when I was approaching the location for the second or maybe the third story mission when suddenly it said failure, and I was told that the truth had just vanished into darkness, and I was left standing there like the world's worst photojournalist that was by far way too weak and pathetic to have ever covered a war, let alone several of them. Then a second reality check immediately ushered its way in as well and started waving its meat around when I realized that I didn't have multiple save files, and no matter how quickly I ran and how smoothly I dodged zombies, there was nothing I could do to get to the location on time, so I had to restart the game from the beginning. beginning, but luckily, all things considered, I was still pretty early on in the game, so I didn't lose much time. And again, I just had no idea how much of this game is focused on you managing your time properly so that you can actually experience the story in its entirety, and how if you goof around for too long and lose track of time, the game is going to punish you, like a parent when you come back home 5 minutes after the streetlights turn on. And I'll be honest with you, it was pretty exhausting at first. I genuinely felt like it was impeding on the enjoyability of the game. At first, I found myself wishing I could turn that feature off completely, mainly because I felt like I never had ample time to just explore the mall and dick around, and how if I wanted to complete as many missions as possible, which was my priority, I had to go. I had to always be on the move. I had to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Turbo Man. Again, especially since I went into the game wanting to do every single main story quest and every single side quest as well. I wanted to save every survivor. I wanted to kill every psychopath in a variety of brutal but tasteful ways, but alas, on my first playthrough, I was far from skilled enough to do so. But soon after I came to that realization, I came to another, and that was that the time management aspect wasn't just annoying, but in a lot of ways, it was also brilliant. Fantastic, perhaps even genius, because I wasn't even playing the game for 2 to 3 hours before I was already thinking about what I was going to do differently during my second playthrough. And that's a big deal for me, by the way. I do replay games, but not often, and even with my favorite games, it usually takes me 5+ years before I return to them. But Dead Rising is without a doubt one of the most replayable video games that I've ever played, and the way that it's designed, it's structured, is perfect for replayability. But again, I wanted to do all the side quests, but I couldn't, so I ended up writing down what quests I did end up completing, so the next time I played the game, I could focus instead on the ones that I skipped. So when I played the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster the following week, it made that experience even better because I wasn't just doing the same stuff over again. I was meeting new survivors, experiencing different encounters, and prioritizing different things. And of course, like any good game, it gets a bit easier with each playthrough because you learn the shortcuts, you memorize where the best weapons are, the weaknesses of certain bosses. But what surprised me the most was how even the chance encounters you come across can change up as well. Like how during my first playthrough, I didn't go to the gun store until I was pretty late into day 2, or maybe even day 3. But when I played the Deluxe Remaster, I went to the gun store pretty early, and I came across the psychopath Cletus, who I never met during my first playthrough. But of course, probably Dead Rising's biggest draw for me now and when I was a kid was the combat, the core moment-to-moment gameplay. It just looked absolutely insane, batshit crazy actually. The zombie games I was used to then, and the majority of the ones I play now, fall into a slower demographic, which I love by the way, so I'm definitely not hating, but like I mentioned before, a lot more slow, tense moments, a lot of resource and item management, games where one enemy all alone posed a significant threat. So it was such a breath of fresh air being able to kill 50 zombies with a golf ball in the span of 30 seconds. I just frothed at the mouth at the idea of picking up anything I could get my hands on and just going to town. And for the most part, I did find the moment-to-moment combat to be pretty satisfying. But I'll be honest with you guys, and you may want to shoot me with a golf ball after I say this, but I did also find the core combat to be lacking in a lot of ways as well, specifically the item variety. So many weapons in this game are practically worthless and deal next to no damage and seem to be there just to complete a checklist, which often resulted in me using the same 4 or 5 weapons during my entire playthrough. The katana, the axe in the antique shop, the clown's handheld chainsaw, of course, the Vietnam vet's machete, and honestly the hunting knife. I barely used anything else besides those weapons, and I know it adds to the sense of realism that picking up a handbag isn't necessarily the best option for slaughtering the undead, but I don't play Dead Rising for the realism. I doubt you play Dead Rising for the realism. I feel like in a game like this, a toy laser sword should deal almost as much damage as the real thing, and it was just a bit odd to me that a game that has so many weapons, where you can pick up practically anything you see, it seems to reward you and encourage you to just use the same small handful of weapons over and over and over. But to be fair, much like my initial annoyance with the time management, it does add to the replayability factor of the game, because on my first playthrough, like I said, I just used the best weapons, the weapons that would help me get from point A to point B the easiest and the fastest. But on my second playthrough, when I played the Deluxe Remaster, I allowed myself to branch out a bit and to use some more of the niche weapons. Since I already knew what I was doing and where I was going, I could kind of have a little more fun with the combat and be a bit more creative. And I'm sure whenever I get around to playing the game for a third time, I'll be able to use a handbag like how John Wick uses a pencil. In terms of combat though, like I said, I did enjoy it for the most part, and I still enjoy it. Hell, even now I have a save file that I load up just to fuck around with when I'm bored, but I'd lie if I said that for every combat and gameplay praise, I didn't see two flaws or criticisms I had or nitpicks, but that's certainly not to the game's detriment. Let's be real. It's a game from 2006 that was far more ambitious than a lot of its peers. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, but the fact that it's still this fun to play in 2024 is just insane, and I'm sure people will still be singing its song in 2034 if the aliens don't take us out by then. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt that I am unbelievably hyped to play Dead Rising 2 and the other sequels now, because I see so many ways that they can innovate on this formula. Dead Rising 1 is a near perfect foundation to be built upon, and I just really hope that Capcom did build upon it in good ways. Now I want to talk about the story and the characters a little bit. The story is something that I didn't really have any expectations for. I wasn't expecting much, truthfully. I just wanted combat and gameplay, but the story was surprisingly good, with a lot of memorable characters that I found myself growing pretty fond of. Brad and Jesse specifically are great, and I actually wish the game gave us more of them. Not Otis though, fuck that guy, but I found myself liking those characters so much that I did feel a slight tinge of emotion when they met their fate. I didn't break down sobbing in the rain or anything like that, but I did give a shit, which is more than I can say for most of the side character deaths in a lot of recent games that I've been playing. Weirdly enough though, I didn't immediately fall in love with Frank West himself, the man of the hour, which is strange because I know he's an iconic character to a lot of people, and as far as I'm aware, he is the dude of the franchise, but honestly, he annoyed me a lot at first. He seemed a bit whiny, and his character model was just a little hard to look at. He's really goofy looking, and it was hard for me to root for him because, again, I didn't really like him at first. But put those golf balls away, he did end up growing on me a lot. By the time the game was over, I did consider myself a Frank West fan, but let's talk about the plot. I've consumed a lot of zombie media that takes place in malls. Those two things go together like zombies in malls, and I think Dead Rising might be the best of them all in terms of how it uses its setting and its characters to elevate the narrative itself, and how all those things come together in one cohesive way. Not that the plot is Shakespearean or anything, or the game's message is godlike sent down from the heavens, but it's nearly perfect in its simplicity. But another thing Dead Rising nails so well is its tone. The zombies in the mall, the terrorist, the investigative journalist, the themes of consumerism, it all makes for such a fun yet simplistic story, but luckily, since the game doesn't take itself too seriously, it allows us to laugh alongside it, to have fun with it, instead of possibly feeling like we were being preached to or talked down to. And I know this is small overall when it comes to the game as a whole, but I also love just the tone and the vibe of its presentation as well, especially during cutscenes. There's a lot of quiet moments and ambient noise. It feels like we are alone in an eerily quiet mall without any real good plan, and we're all just waiting to die or hoping to be rescued, even though we don't think a rescue is going to happen. Then when you go out into the populated areas, you hear the moans of the zombies, and at times it can be genuinely unsettling. I'm just glad that the game doesn't use music too much and bombard us with too many sound effects. I love that the game feels, again, disturbingly quiet. But yeah, I definitely see 110% with 2020 vision why Dead Rising has established a cult classic legacy. Is it one of my favorite games of all time? I'm not going to say that. I wouldn't say it's in my top 10, but it has a fighting chance of being in my top 20. But I can say this without a shadow of a doubt. It's absolutely one of the most memorable gaming experiences that I've ever had. I typically play a lot of video games, but ever since I've been focusing on gaming heavily on this channel, my gaming output has gone up 1,000%. And a lot of games I play, most of them actually never really stick with me. I kind of forget about them as soon as I move on to the next, but I can already tell that Dead Rising is going to stand the test of time for me, like how it has for so many other people. And the fact that I wanted to replay it immediately after beating it for the first time, and the fact that I'm still playing with it even after beating it twice, says a lot. It is a really, really, really fun game, and I know I have a strong feeling in my heart, in my soul, that Dead Rising is going to be one of my favorite gaming franchises of all time. But yeah, that's my thoughts after finally playing and beating Dead Rising in 2024. What's your opinion on the game? What's Dead Rising mean to you? Let me know in the comments. And once again, you should consider checking out my full review for the Deluxe Remaster, and sometime in the relative near future, I'm going to talk about Dead Rising 2, 3, and 4. So consider subscribing if you liked this video, and thank you for watching, especially if you watched this far.